Okay, again, we're looking at chart 429. Okay, and I got to explain to the dot scales. You know, and if I explain this right, you're going to say, wow, yeah, that makes sense. It's like when you have chess helper, you know, chess, kings, queens, bishops, rooks, pawns, horses. And you go, chess helper, give me a hint, and it shows you where to go. And you say, oh, I knew that. Well, that's what I'm doing all the work for you. And you're going to say, so my job is for you to go, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That's easy. Because I don't want it to seem too complicated. Chart 429, modes of the 12 cage keys plus Dorian Blues magic. Okay. Let's look at, now this is right next to Dorian Blues magic, but it isn't Dorian Blues magic. These are the dot scales. But, and we've talked about dot scales in the past. Okay, now the easiest dot scale to learn is the dot scale of the E note. Why? If you look at the E note, and then the dot scale of the E note is the entire C scale and the chromatic too. And that would be what we have, the 12 cages. But the 7 of them are the first ones to know. So E can be a scale member of any of the major scales built off a C major scale. So what is E the third of? E is the third of C. So E is the third of C, the second of D, the root of itself, the seventh, the major seventh of F, the sixth of G, the fifth of A, the fourth of B. E is the third of C, the second of D, and itself again. So that, when we look at here, here's E. It's the third of C, the second of D, the root of itself, the seventh of F, and all the other dots are covered too. But C is the easiest one to look at because E is the easiest one to look at, E easy, because E is the flatted third of C sharp. So it looks like a piano there. Here's your white notes and here's your accidentals. Now this is also a pentatonic scale built off the second of the E scale. Alright, so how does that work? Let's look. So over here, example, dot note equals E. The dot scale is simply the C major scale. E is the third of C, the second of D, it's the root of E, the seventh of F, the sixth of G, the fifth of A, and the fourth of B. It goes backwards, and so do the sharps. You build a pen scale on the second of the E scale, okay, and you get F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, C sharp, D sharp. In the key of E, that is the black notes. It's a pentatonic in G flat. All the black notes. So that's why E is an easy key to do, because the dot scale is the C major scale, all the white notes, and the flats are just the black notes. Okay? Key of lowest playable note in perfect fifths, that goes around. Okay? So when the lowest playable note is the root key. When the lowest playable note is in the goes to the fifth next. Okay, how does that work? Right here, key of the 5. So it isn't the fourth, it's the lowest playable note, because we have to look at things relative. Talk about the size of the universe. Somebody said, well, the universe was as big as an atom. How big was an atom? With nothing else there, what do you compare it to? So we have to compare. And by the way, that's absurd. I don't believe that. I don't believe it. Could have been the size of an atom, but it's still hard to believe. Root these are the LPNs that go up and forth. So root, okay, the 5-fret cage. Lowest playable note is root, key of root. Lowest playable note is a 4. It would give you the key of 5. Because in the key of C, C being the lowest playable note, is the 5th of, okay, it's the 5th of, it's the 4th of, rather. The 4th of the 5th. I know it's confusing, so let's move on. 12 key complete set here. I've gone ahead and shown you that this is the dot scale. It has all of the white keys, root, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and the flats. Now notice the flats aren't these flats. They're these flats here, G, D, A, E, C. So these are the major pen scale on the second of the root scale, flats of the dot scale. These are the flats of the dot scale. 7 flat, 3 flat, 6 flat, 2 flat, and 5 flat. And here's the dot scale. Okay? Root could be anything. That's why it doesn't say C, E, or D there, or F, capo F, or capo G. It just says root. Blues note equals in between the 4 and the 5. I call it the blues note, the tritone, because you can get the others by simply using the blues magic key. So the blues note is what we have to add to the blues magic key. So when we're in the blues magic key, these aren't lined up. I mixed these up. I arranged them to be the 5 flats of the dot scale and the dot scale. So these aren't particularly lined up here, okay? But it would be like go down 2. So it would be like there'd be a correlation there, okay? The key of the 7th, okay, a whole step down from that would be the key of the 6th. So you skip down 2. Skip down 2. Okay, so the key of the 6th. So where you play E2, 3, 4 as the bottom string shape of that cage, in that key, in the key of the 7th, the E would be whatever note you want to play it in. Usually E, right? So E. So what would root be in that case? You'd have to count it up, but it would be the 7th. So the 7th, the key of the 7th would be the key of the 7th in E. Let's see that now. Let's look for our little E there on the bottom. Now we have to find it on top because I replaced this. Key of 7. Okay, so in E, it would be the key of E flat. Alright, so R would be on the E flat. The key of E, we got E, A, D. 1 up from D is E flat. Proof enough. Proof enough. So let's see what else we can get from here. I want to talk about the dot scales and how they go backwards, boss. You should see this. The dot scales start 2 whole steps down from the dot or lowest playable note, root note, and is the mirror image of the major scale relative to that dot note's position in each dot scale major scale. It's totally backwards. Okay, so it counts backwards. 3 goes to 2, goes to 7, goes to 6, goes to 5. 3 goes to 2, goes to root, goes to 6, goes to 5, goes to 4. There's that kind of thing. Hey, that's about it for today's chart. We're going to be working with this stuff in the future and seeing how, where we can get with all this. And if you like these videos, like and subscribe, and keep playing, keep watching. And it's been a very good lesson. And you have a good evening tonight. Bye.